Greetings to all. I hope you all are doing well. Mind is a fascinating instrument. And the more you feel that you've figured it out, the more confused you get. So for the sake of simplicity, masters conceptually divided the mind into two parts. This is only conceptual, just for a better understanding. So Ramesh Balsekar would call one aspect of the mind as thinking and other aspect of the mind as working. Now you can imagine the thinking mind as the amygdala and working mind as the frontal lobes. Working mind is usually contemplating the next steps in a given task. It is not a solution oriented mind. It is not attached to the outcome. Whereas the thinking mind is attached to the outcome. It is attached to how it is being perceived or it will be perceived. So sometime back, I was having a conversation with Jackie. She's here. And she came up with a very interesting thought that working mind seeks correlation and thinking mind seeks causation. In other words, thinking mind wants to know the cause because the idea is that once I know the cause, I will be able to fix. I will be in control. Working mind is simply considering relating A to B, cause to effect in the given moment. It is not concerned with how the perception is being showcased, how things are being seen, good, bad. Those are all thinking concepts, worthy, unworthy, right, wrong. Working mind does not have these concepts. Working mind is next practical step. So if, for example, one is thirsty, then the working mind suggests having liquids. With mind, it is a bit more complicated. Thinking mind wants the outcome to be a certain way. So it says, only if I figure the mind out, I figure this whole thinking process out. If I know the cause, the true cause of my behaviors, my reactivity, my actions, then I will be able to tweak and fix. And it can go to any extent to prove that it is right, because thinking mind is about right, being right. And sometimes to do that, it can twist concepts in its own limited vision. So it can use scriptures, verses, and create its own interpretation and present them as facts, as the absolute truth. For example, in our last talk, we were having a discussion about what if this all is just stories and concepts. And I said that yes, it is all stories and concepts. That's it. But knowing that information, will you stop seeking? That's the question. Now, if I say that this is just a concept, what I'm speaking, and that is the absolute truth, that there is no truth. But you see, that statement itself is so absolute. So the mind, the thinking mind wants to know because it wants to be in control. The more I know, the more power there is, the more I'm in control, the more I can exercise my will. So it seeks control in that form. But then what is lost is the joy, the beauty of life and living, the peace. Because grasping, binding, controlling, and peace, they do not go together. When Buddha was asked, are identifications the real problem? How will I live in this world without identifications? So the answer was that no, you cannot live without identifications. Identifications are required in daily living. But identifications by themselves are not the issue. The issue is grasping onto those identifications, which Buddha described as tanha or trishna, or craving or clinging. The clinging energy is a very distinct energy, and it can be felt, it can be known. At each moment, we are aware, there is awareness of energy, its nature, relaxed, anxious, grasping. So the thinking mind is the grasping mind, the clinging mind. And it spins this web of identifications and tries to go deeper and deeper into it, believing that that will solve problems. So, what do we have? We have more and more concepts. And there is a burden, there is a burnout of concepts overload. So instead of being just present with each other and just being in that shared presence of being, we meet each other through images, image of fear, image of limitations. I am this, I am that, I am so and so. I like this, I like that. I'm happy when this happens. I'm unhappy when that happens. I should be this way. I should not be that way. I should not be a reactive person because being reactive person is bad. I should be a good person. I should be a calm person. We put so much load on ourselves, being a certain way, being perceived a certain way. It is all the thinking mind or the me mind bringing attention to itself because thinking mind's craving never stops. And here's an interesting thing that sometimes from that thinking mind comes another thought. Let me be more quiet. Let me be quieter. So I must now teach myself how to be quiet. But you see what is happening out of all the thought and thinking that this mind is entangled. I give myself another challenge. Now I have to quiet the mind also. It is just adding on to another thought. So I had 1,000 thoughts, now I have 1,001 thought, one of which includes quietening the other thoughts. So as a result, there is total entanglement and something similar to electric overload. The most beautiful aspect of this, call it a message or a teaching, or call it a concept, for me was that it was a revelation that I don't have to burden myself by forcing myself to be quiet. I just have to simply let the observation happen. And sometimes the observation will happen, other times it will not happen. Or let me put it another way. Sometimes total observation will happen, and other times partial observation will happen. Which means while I'm observing, if I'm caught up with my own filters of how things should or should not be, that is partial observation. Total observation is, as Jiddu Krishnamurti would say, total attention. That means there are no filters, there is no distortion, but there is total vision of what is. Now, is it in my control? No. But there is something that can see when the control is there and when the control is not there. What is that? We forget to go there. Nisargadatta Maharaj said that the irony is that what is most valuable in this moment We always try to run away from that because it can feel uncomfortable, even with the understanding. I was in a bad mood this morning, horrible mood, and I had a massive reaction to a small thing. So I stayed present, and there was total observation of what was happening. Now, in the moment, everything happened. All the shame, all the mind coming up with total force was arising. You should not have said that. You should not have done that. This is not good. This is good. This is bad. But it played for a little while and then it disappeared. Then I apologized to my loved one who was with me, gave them a hug, gave them a kiss, and then we were on our way, our usual task. I didn't sit with the story. Thinking mind wants to cling on to the story, add it as a concept. This happened to me. I did this. I did this bad thing. I should not have done this. And then it repeats. And the problem with that is it sees other also as the doer. It says even the others should not have done this to me. Now, again, it is not about giving a free pass to anybody to behave as they like, because actions have consequences. Nobody is spared of the consequences, nor was I spared of the consequences this morning. I had my consequences, but it was accepted. So, what remains in the end after all reactivity is the compassionate heart that I speak about, where there is no seeking happening. There is no quest for improving the mind, fixing the mind, making it stronger. Those are all ideas of the thinking mind. But there is another aspect of the mind that works in this present moment. How can I make my relationship better? What words can I use to comfort my beloved? How can I how can I be more creative in my speech, in my actions, in my words, without worrying about how the other will perceive it or think about it? That mind is only concerned with the present moment. A couple of days back, I was speaking to somebody on the phone, and he said that I'm really in turmoil right now because being in the spiritual circles for so long, I feel a lot of compassion in my heart for people. But at the same time, I have some financial issues also in my life. So he was offered a job where he would basically help disabled children. And he was very excited about it. But then there was another part of him that was saying that, yes, this is all good, but how do I pay my bills? How do I run my house? Because this is all volunteering work. The income is not guaranteed. It may be there some days, it may not be there other days. And he says that I feel bad that, I'm rejecting, I feel bad to reject this offer because I should be helping the children. So I sat with him and I said, let's for a moment just think about yourself. Yes, it's a noble cause, no doubt about it. But if you are not able to pay your bills and your daily living is affected, how much of help can you really provide to the children and people over there? Because there will be pressures on you, financial pressure, family pressure. So the practical working mind says, okay, first let me secure a job so that the income starts coming, and maybe on the weekends I can go and help the children. Let me start by that. Start with that. And slowly, as I gather more resources with time and patience, I can just go and jump into that full fledged. That is how it happened in my life. I started with writing, and while I was doing other projects to help myself, to be support to people around me. But then at one point, I decided to go all in because I knew that now is the time. So that was practical decision making, which comes from the working mind. The thinking mind may say, no, this is not what spiritual people do. Once we let the control drop and allow the witnessing or the direct observation to happen, we start to see how these two minds are playing out in our daily living. We learn to distinguish between the two and how they are arising in different situations. So the warning system doesn't override the rational faculty. Now, there are times when a reaction happens, even with the sage. And this is not said by me, this was said by Ramesh Valsekar, that even a sage reacts sometimes, but the reaction is not continuous in horizontal time as thinking. It is momentary. Thinking mind works in horizontal time. For working mind, there is no concept of horizontal thinking. It is now. Next step, step A, step B, and it goes on. And the beautiful thing is that as the thinking mind subsides, this working mind, the creative mind, becomes even sharper. So, what people find is that as this thinking begins to subside, not through effort, not by suppressing thought, that does not work. That is the thinking mind's idea only. But through simple observation, very simple, direct observation of how these two forces are playing out in life. and letting the adjustment happen on its own rather than forcing your idea of what should or should not be. Then the thinking mind begins to subside and the working mind becomes more enhanced. So, as a result, what we see is more creativity. The organism, mind body organism, feels relief with work, even with mundane work like washing dishes or cleaning. It can become a joyful experience. However, when the thinking mind is activated, doing a simple chore can be nightmarish. Why me? What a life. I should be doing something else. I should be some big shot CEO somewhere. Why am I here washing the dishes? Well, I just washed my dishes a couple of hours back, and some are still left. But I can enjoy that activity at a very slow pace and with proper rinsing and then drying the utensils. And then sometimes I clean my courtyard outside, which is again a very joyful experience for me because this is the fall and the leaves are there. And somehow they have this crunchiness, crispiness. So when I pick up the leaves, I can hear the sound of those leaves and I put them in a basket and then I, you know, put them in an appropriate place where they can be picked up. So it sort of becomes meditative in nature, the working mind, without necessarily one needing to sit in a fixed posture and concentrating on an object. Although there's nothing wrong with that. That is perfectly good activity. But simply through observation or witnessing, life becomes a series of meditation. Or let me put it another way, the quality of life becomes meditative because there is no resistance to anything. Whatever is arising in the moment is accepted. And Ramesh Balsekar would say that after awakening, life becomes a series of witnessing only, not awakening of a person. The person never awakens. There is no personal awakening, just an insight or a spiritual understanding that all there is consciousness. So after that, life just becomes a series of witnessing, which to the thinking mind can be a very boring activity, a plain boring activity. Because thinking mind seeks thrill, the joy juice of life. But what it forgets is that that juice, that joy has a cost. And the opposite is also coming along with it. Just being here in this moment, bringing yourself here, you realize that you're free. You're free from all these thought processes, these concepts, because when you're here, you are the compassionate heart. The compassionate heart is again impersonal, it is not personal. It is not your compassionate heart, it is just the compassionate heart. Call it peace, call it consciousness, call it love. In the compassionate heart, there is no division. Only the mind has these divisions, these identifications. And it moves in the direction to strengthen these identifications. As a result, suffering is experienced. But simply knowing that all there is consciousness and all is movement in that consciousness, and what is in movement in that consciousness is not separate from it. That itself brings the mind to rest. Then, as Ramana Maharishi says, if the thought comes and knocks your door, you can simply say, no, thank you. And it won't disturb. Right. We can take up questions now. So if anybody would like to ask anything or share anything, you can raise your hand and I will unmute you.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Erding. How are you?
Good. I mean, fine. How about you?
I'm good. Tell me.
Thanks for the talk, by the way. Uh, well, after all these realizations and awakening process, this thinking mind seems to be still in control, or I don't know. It doesn't want to leave the control. I guess it's so painful, and like I start thinking that I failed this. I mean, of course, I can't fail in awakening because it's happening. But last month, I mean, I guess like couple of weeks and almost a month, just cannot get rid of the thinking that I failed, and then I'm going worse and worse in the process. Because like I cannot surrender anymore. The thinking mind is more powerful than before. Even though I had this perception shift that I've realized that I'm a divine being, I'm a consciousness, but I still believe in my thoughts. It's so painful. And then I'm kind of afraid of that. It's not going to end. And then I will caught up in this never ending disaster thoughts, as you also mentioned in the
Yeah.
talk. Maybe it's so weird because before awakening, I wasn't thinking that much. I didn't care at all. But now it feels like they're so obvious and I cannot escape of this thinking mind. Whatever I do, I eat the whole fridge. I played the whole video games. I just like doing everything, but nothing works anymore. So
Yeah.
maybe I talked this before with
Yeah.
on this Zoom talk, but I don't know. Now I feel like this awakening process also I failed in this awakening process like all the other things in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah. See, yes. Yes. So you see, now what I see is that the level of awareness is so high over here. Like, yes, there is a tendency of it is the thinking mind only which is saying I failed, because it is the thinking mind. Failure is a thinking mind's concept. It is not there in the working mind. You see, working mind is next step. What is the next step? Okay, I have to maybe, go for a walk or maybe cook a meal. It is not worried about failure or success. And I would say one thing that this thing was there before the awakening. It was there, but it was not in your conscious mind. It was the undercurrent which propelled you to this, which brought you to this point. And it had to. There was no other way. People can embrace any amount of pain in search of truth. That is a fact of life. They do not care what hardships they have to face. Once the crack has happened, it just happens like that. That its potency is so much. It feels so familiar that you cannot help but be drawn to it like a moth gets drawn to the flame, even even in its death. Now, if I say leave the thinking mind and let it be a failure and let it be everything, then what? You know, then what?
Yeah,
What if?
that's the thing. Right now, it's
Yeah.
then what?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's then what? What to
Yes,
do right now?
exactly. So at
What
some
to do
point,
right now?
at some point, now it is not up to us. It is not, uh, that's what I said in my talk also, that it is not about putting effort, to trying to be a certain way, you know. There is no special, there's no, it does not make anybody special to have a certain experience, because experiences can come to different people in different ways. The organism more or less remains the same. Even the behaviors and patterns, now some of them may change, yes, and I do agree that there is a degree of peace that comes up with this process. And of course it is that peace that keeps pulling you in that direction. Even if you cannot visualize it, you can feel it somewhere that keeps pushing you in that direction. So the thinking mind, it sort of, plays out in its most intense form. I mean, we have seen in the ashrams where Ramana Maharishi would be, in Ramana Maharishi ashram, many devotees would have convulsions, when the ego structure was breaking, when the thinking was breaking. And some masters would go there and put their hand on their head and, and hold them and embrace them so that, they feel being held. And sometimes, you know, sometimes it so happens that the last noose, as I would say, the last trick of the thinking mind gets destroyed only when you go in person to your teacher or to whoever you feel is, bringing you peace. Sometimes it happens, like for me it happened like that. I had to be in the proximity of my teacher, and he held my hand, and it just broke in that moment. But it is not necessary that it will happen like that for everyone. There are many others for whom this process didn't happen. For example, for Ramana Maharishi, it didn't happen that way for him. For him, his guru was his mountain, and just being in the proximity of his mountain was good enough for him. Even for other teachers, I've heard that just, there is something, sometimes there is an object, or there can be nothing at all, and they can just let it be. Now, again, that said, it doesn't mean that thinking will not happen. Even after that, the thinking happens. But now those associations are so weak that it doesn't create any suffering. It is like, okay. If it is happening, let it happen. What is the worst? And look at the trick of the thinking mind. It's trying to convince you that it's 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 going to be worst if things do not happen a certain way. But has it ever happened? It has never happened. Now we know that intellectually. We know that it's nothing is actually going to happen. But the emotions are strong. Emotion says no, it has to be that way. So, there this balance, the moment we realize that we are putting effort somewhere, and that is an investigation that you will have to do on your own. Nobody can teach you that. No guru can give you that. Guru can only point, teacher can only point, books can only point, scriptures can only point, and they're just saying, go inwards, look at this eye. Just look at this eye. Bring yourself back to this eye. Every time the mind starts the dialogue, bring yourself to this eye. Who is this I that says I have failed? I have, and you won't be able to pinpoint. You will never be able to pinpoint this I. But that has to be an understanding of the heart, not of the mind. So,
No,
you know,
it does sometimes. Like
yeah,
once a week, I realize that there's no one in here, and
yeah,
I actually wonder to whom this mind talks to because there's no one here. I
exactly,
mean,
exactly.
but then the emotions are so strong, and it's like anxiety, and the
Yeah,
everything comes together, and then thinking mind is getting more stronger. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, this is the awakening is so something not like everyday thing that I it happens or I experience. So that's why maybe I cannot surrender anymore because it's
yeah,
I don't know, it feels weird. That's
exactly. That
I,
itself, you see, that itself is the surrender. When you say that I can't surrender anymore, that itself is the surrender, you know? And if here's the thing, if you totally believe that you cannot surrender, that will bring you peace. 100% that will bring you peace. But if there is a confusion that no, although I'm saying I can surrender, but still I am fighting somewhere.
I am fighting,
Yeah.
unfortunately fighting.
Exactly, exactly. So, what can be done? Nothing. We don't have to do a single thing. Just observe. Observe that this is happening and let it take its time, let it take its course. And
Right.
yeah, nothing else can be done other than that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Hello. Hi, Martina.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Um, there's some very weird
Oh, yes, there is some echo.
background noise,
Yes.
but you can hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, it's our internet here.
Oh, is there any other
It sounds
device
like a
around you
siren
which is,
going through.
is there any other device around you which is perhaps on or,
Okay, so maybe I should lower my hand and we could go on because
yeah,
I'm not. Okay.
you can come back again. You can just check if that's and come back again and we can connect again.
Okay.
Yeah, because otherwise I don't think I'll be able to understand you properly it's too strong there, because it's too strong.
Is it strong on your side?
Let's go on. Let's go on. Yes, tell
Okay.
me. Tell me.
It's kind of short. Connected to the our last sitting about truth.
Okay.
So my um, it startled the mind, and so after we were done that day, I went back to investigate, really, is there no truth? I know that words break my connection with the heart. That's really clear for me now. But I was still holding on to the truth of the master's teaching. And so I began to inquire, is there really no truth? And there was an anxiety that went along with that. What if there isn't any truth? That was such a very powerful conversation we had. I don't remember her name, but that was a very powerful conversation with her. And as I continued to be aware of the sensation of what if there isn't any truth? I mean, like literally, no truth. There is no truth that there's a universe. And all of a sudden, it just disappeared at this fastness. It was so easy and effortless. It shocked the mind. Part of this is you start to feel schizophrenic. So I totally understand the conversation that you were having just before this. It's like it does feel schizophrenic for a period of time. And I would say probably the last month or so that started to be quieter. But before that, I was really feeling schizophrenic because the consciousness of who I am was totally seeing, feeling, experiencing this thinking mind that would not let me go. And then I would come back, but there was a fight. There was a fight there of that you were talking about. But the disappearance of truth is, if you could speak just a little bit more about that, it's beautiful. I mean, that was my experience, was as soon as there was no truth, which seems impossible to the mind.
Yeah.
There was just this effortless peace and wonder. So anyway, I wanted to share that, and thank you for the really intense dialogues, and thank you for going through this noise that's going on.
Well, that's what is happening, and that's God's will.
And I do want to tell you how much I appreciate your honesty. And your honesty is why I'm here. Because there's so much dialogue out there now about how to do and how to be. And it's just so heavy now because the teachers apparently have overcome all of this. So I love the fact that I can come and hear authenticity. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to mute you so that my voice doesn't get echoed in your location. And then I'm going to speak on the topic. So yes, that is what I talk about when I talk about the compassionate heart. That for the intellect, now intellect is the mind system, which means it is divisive. So the mind system ultimately comes to this realization that there is no such thing as an absolute truth, like an absolute formula that would just bring me peace all my life, every second of my life, because it imagines that peace to be a certain way. Whereas this is not the peace that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about being immersed in bliss 24/7. I'm talking about life, raw life, as it happens, with its ups and downs, with its, hardships. I talk about sexuality. I talk about aggression, I talk about violence, everything is included in that, nothing excluded. It is all expression of the wholeness. So that peace does not exclude anything, it is all inclusive. Now, when that is understood, it is a very, very natural realization that there is no truth that we are looking for. It is only a concept. It is only an illusion. This is why Papaji said, call off the search. His message was very direct. Call off the search. Like your searching, your seeking is causing you pain. But that said, the thing is that we are not in control of stopping the search. So if the search is destined to happen, then it will happen. And if the suffering along with that is uh, destined to happen, then that'll also happen. So, like I was speaking to Ardink before this, and he was saying that I know that the thinking is happening and it is causing suffering, but yet I cannot do anything about it. That is it. But I would say that having this realization that I cannot do anything about it brings a certain level of peace which leads to the heart. Because mind is now beginning to surrender. It is now beginning to see the futility of doership, of putting effort into trying to change things and make them be a certain way for one to be happy. That happiness has no value, it has no meaning because it is very fleeting. It can be broken in an instant. The happiness that I talk about includes everything, it includes even grieving, it includes all emotions, everything in totality, seeing everything as a part of one wholeness, one movement. And the movement and stillness are one and the same thing. Consciousness at rest, consciousness and movement, as Ramesh Balsekar, he put it very simply. Noumenon, phenomenon. They're one and the same. There is no non-duality apart from duality. Non-duality is there. It is all there is. The consciousness. So that realization is of the heart. And when that realization happens, the need to figure out the truth or to get the absolute concept is not there because you're living like you are in a dream state. So sorry, not in dream, in deep sleep state, there is absolutely nothing to figure out because everything is seen as one seamless whole. Now, appearance is recognized. It is not that one says that no, it is all one. When they say it is all one, it is like the essence of it is one. The isness, the amness of it is one. But in appearances, there are separations. And of course, there are separations, there are laws, and there's nature, and there's laws of nature. But underneath it is all the same consciousness. And I think even the science now tells us that through this whole you know uh, quantum phenomena where fields are creating these particles and they're changing nature, it is all one. Anyways, I'm not very knowledgeable about that, so I won't go into it. But the point being is, uh, when the seeking drops, the suffering drops, but it is not in our control. So all we can do from our end is we can do something, and all we can do is just simply allow the observation to happen. And that observation brings insights, and those insights bring about the changes that are necessary for the organism, or let me put it another way, which are destined for the organism. Not what the mind thinks is good for me, but what the universe thinks is good is brought about. And that is the salvation. That is freedom that I talk about. Okay. So we can take up one last question if anybody wants to share or ask. Yes.
Thanks, Jagjot.
Hi,
You said
David.
hi. I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad you're
Oh,
feeling
oh,
better
I'm
after the.
I'm seeing tattoos on your hand. They're quite beautiful.
Oh, plenty. I got so many. Yeah.
Nice.
What's it? Tat Van Asi. Yeah.
Oh,
I've
amazing.
got so. Yeah, so
Great.
many, so many. All over
Awesome.
my back, all over my body. I got Mara tattooed across my back. So yeah, constant reminder of ignorance.
Oh, lovely.
um.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I saw it for the
Uh.
first time. So I'm
Yeah.
slightly intrigued.
Thank you. Thank you. My question is not even a question. If you could maybe share more. Um. You said, and I hear you, right? It doesn't have to be meeting one's guru in person.
Yeah.
But I just heard David Goodman speak about. He says if you can meet them in person, go do it. That there's something about. I don't want to like. I hear what you're saying about Ramana and the mountain, and it happens how it happens, and not to attach to any particular path or way. Um, but he did say, and you pointed out that with your
Yeah.
your teacher that something popped,
Yeah.
and I've heard that. I mean, again,
Yeah.
whether that's darshan, shaktipat. Can you just speak to that? I mean, again, I understand the risks.
Yeah.
um I don't want to again create something that's just an attachment, but I've heard this from enough people who have experienced it. And yeah, if you could say just a bit more about that, and that'd be great.
Yes. So from what I've seen and from what I've personally observed, and from the talks that I've uh, attended in my um, during my days when I would be seeking and trying to find answers, is that at one point we are all intellectual. We start with all intellectual. We try to use the mind to to figure it out. What is ailing us, and what is the uh, you know how to find answers to a question. And usually at that stage, the idea is that somehow if I have this knowledge, this wisdom, I may be able to better my life, right? That's a very common uh, conditioning at the time. However, as one goes deep into the concepts, one starts to become a little skeptical of this term called betterment, trying to better my life, because they start to see the trap. You see, they start to see that, okay, I am in a particular place with a particular family, with a particular job, with different situations around me. And somehow, those forces are so pervasive, so strong, that I cannot really do much about them. Now, what happens is, for some people, that association gets broken through the presence of the master. Doesn't mean that the relationship are lost. It doesn't mean that. But the nature of relationship changes. The nature of attachment now changes. It starts to become more conscious. But that thing sometimes is brought about through proximity with the teacher. And it is true that there is something to the presence which sometimes just breaks the heart open. And the first thing that opens up are the emotions, raw emotions. So, because I remember the first time I was with my teacher, I just hugged him and I was howling. I was crying. I was howling because there was so much outpouring in that moment. And I just needed to. And the way it happened with me is that my teacher was just walking, coming up to me, and I didn't know that he had to cross that path. I was just by myself. And the moment I looked at him, all of a sudden I was teary eyed. And I just ran up to him and I just hugged him. And he hugged me. And we didn't speak a single word. There wasn't even a single word spoken. I just hugged him, you know. And after that, I started blabbering something, and he was kind enough to just hold me there. But I remember he putting his hand on me and not letting me go. He was like, okay, be here, don't worry, be here. And that meant a lot to me. And in that moment, something broke open. Yes, the intellectual knowledge was there, the understanding was there, but the heart opened. Now, you can call it connection, you can call it anything, you can call it just maybe there was some experience of loneliness and then there was this experience. So that could have, brought about it. Uh, but there was an energetic exchange, and sometimes that happens. So, yes, I mean, in many cases that happens. Now, I don't suggest anybody to just, leave their place and just go to their master. Of course, people are from different areas, and there are responsibilities, there are other things, you have to plan trips sometimes for this. But that said, when the time is right and the energy is strong, nothing is going to stop you. You are just going to do it without worrying about anything. And this used to happen with Nisargadatta Maharaj. And he said that, yes, I am more sincere with my Western um devotees, not with the Eastern. Why? Because, yes, Eastern devotees, they come because they've heard of me as a guru. And they come and they are like, okay, bless my child, do this ritual for me. And he plays his part, okay, Saubhagyavati Bhav, or, he would give some blessing to them, and the show is done and they're gone. But but the Western devotees, they crossed the seven seas to be in a red light district in this heat of Mumbai every day, sitting 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon in his presence. And yes, questioning, talking, enduring the heat of India, you know which is even nightmare for us sometimes, especially in the north. But they do it. So Nisarga Datta Maharaj would say that I give them my all, which meant that he unleashed on them his whole wrath in that moment. And what was his wrath? His wrath was, I am going to destroy you if you ask me that I understand intellectually what you're saying, but my heart is still not there. You are not allowed to ask that question. The moment you would say that you haven't got it from the heart, he would unleash his fury, all his rage onto you in that moment. you know, he would just say, no, this is not, you are that. You are that. So he was extra hard with his Western disciples because he saw the sincerity. He saw that they came from so far and they were enduring so much. And for them, it was totally, it was not a problem. Even with Ramesh, this happened that a boy, he was a, he was a, he was from America, I believe. He was a white boy, and he came and he just, uh, he was so hungry. He was hungry for like 2, 3 days. He hadn't eaten food. So Ramesh's wife actually cooked a meal for him, and he ate the food. And he just said, I just want to sit here and be with you. And he sat there and he attended all the satsangs. So even enduring hardships, sometimes that flow is so strong, that calling is so strong that you have to go. Now, again, it is not to say that one has to assume this and just book a flight to to some place. No, it will come from within, and you will know, and there won't be a doubt. You will know, okay, I have to go. This is my person. It doesn't have to be a master. It can be a friend. It can be anybody who brings you peace, and the knowledge will come. That's my concept on this. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think we will conclude for today. And thank you all for being here. And, uh, your presence is wonderful, graceful. You all are the wholeness. You are that. So we'll meet again next week.